Well, when I made the last episode, I had only read the first part of the story, but I took a gamble that it would be amazing. And I was right. This story completely shattered my worldview, and I bet you are going to love it too. By the way, I've changed the jump scare warning logo. Please look out for this cute little red ghost. When it appears, it means a scary image will show up in 5 seconds. Remember to cover your eyes. After leaving the company, I felt a lot more relaxed. I told myself to just treat everything as a product of my overactive imagination. After all, so far, there was no solid evidence that this was a supernatural event. I went to meet up with some friends to celebrate finishing our internships. By the time we parted ways, it was already past 7 p.m. The sky was getting dark and the evening breeze made the air feel cool and refreshing, so my friend and I decided to walk back together. We chatted and walked, and without realizing it, we ended up on the street where the house at 2035 was located. I tried to make my expression look less fearful and forced myself to walk past that house as quickly as possible. But suddenly, the door opened. A faint light leaked out from inside. At that moment, I instinctively shrank behind my friend, and then the familiar old lady stepped out of the house. She was still wearing that same black dress with the red flowers, her gray curls giving her the look of a rich matriarch. My friend, excited to finally confirm that someone was living in the house, pointed at the old lady and shouted, "Look, someone's there." The lady didn't seem offended at all. Instead, she smiled at us and even greeted. I didn't say anything, but my friend waved goodbye to her. My friend acted like everything was perfectly normal, but my heart was racing. She kept telling me I'd misjudged the family and that they were just reclusive. I didn't reply, just pulled her away, silently telling myself to never come near that house again. But after that, strange things started happening one after another. After dropping my friend off, I hurried home. Just as I was about to open the door, I suddenly felt my knees go weak and I collapsed to the floor. Then, it felt like someone slammed the back of my head. I was stunned, trying to stand up but feeling completely drained and heavy, as if something had frozen me in place. Terrified, I shouted for my parents. When they saw me kneeling there, their faces immediately filled with concern, and they hurried to help me up. But no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't lift me up. I'm only 50 kilograms, so it didn't really make sense. In the end, they had no choice but to drag me into the house by force. During the struggle, the jade pendant my mom was wearing hit my shoulder, and out of nowhere, I jolted, like I'd been shocked by electricity. Suddenly, I could move again. Later, my mom explained, since my parents are Buddhists, they keep a statue of the Bodhisattva at home. When I collapsed at the door, it was because I had picked up something evil, and the Bodhisattva wouldn't let it enter. The force of it had hit my head, trying to get rid of the evil thing. It wasn't until the Buddha pendant hit my shoulder that the thing temporarily left me, allowing me to finally get inside. Once I was inside, I collapsed on the couch, crying for no reason. My mom, worried, kept touching me and checking if I was alright. She tried to speak a few times but didn't ask any questions, just quietly sat with me for a while, then helped me back to my room. Then I saw her head to the study, the room where the Bodhisattva statue was kept. That night, I slept soundly with no dreams. However, around midnight, I developed a high fever. When I woke up, my parents were already at my bedside, bustling around. Mom gently told me to sit up and take my medicine. That's when I realized how bad my fever had been. It felt like my bones were being crushed by the heat, and the pain shot straight to my head. While drinking water, I vaguely noticed something hiding behind the curtains, a small black shadow. But I was feeling so bad and didn't care to investigate. Finally, after everything settled, I went back to sleep. But that's when things got even stranger. As soon as I closed my eyes, my mind seemed to clear up and my hearing became hypersensitive. I could even hear the sound of cars passing by on the street. It was like being in a hypnotic state. Body was resting, but mind was wide awake. The weirdest thing was, although my eyes were shut, I could see everything in the room. I then noticed the shadow I seen earlier slowly start to move. It crawled closer to my bed, paused for a moment, and then jumped onto my feet, creeping up my lower legs. I couldn't make out what it was, but it felt like some kind of four-legged creatures. Could it have been the old lady's black cat? The shadow just sat there motionless. Not long after, I began hearing a loud buzzing in my ears, and the noise became unbearably loud. I felt like my head was going to explode. Then, all of a sudden, the noise stopped, and the pressure on my legs disappeared. I drifted back to sleep. When morning finally came, my fever had gone down. When I got up, I noticed a small jade pendant around my neck. Mom explained that it was a gift from my aunt when she had visited China a few years ago. She had just found it and put it on me. I didn't ask any questions, thinking it was just a little trinket for protection. After that day, my parents essentially self-detained me at home. The reason was simple. They wanted me to rest up and prepare for the new semester. At first, I didn't think too much of it. I spent my days reading books and watching movies, but even so, strange things kept happening again and again. The first sign was our pets acting strangely. While watching TV one evening, I heard a loud splash coming from the fish tank. I went to check, only to find the fish frantically trying to jump out, as if fleeing for their lives. Then there was our sheepdog, who was usually calm and quiet. For days, it barked non-stop at the window, growling and whining like it was scared of something. I tried bringing it inside, but it still kept pacing and barking toward the window, especially as the sky darkened. More unsettling was the shadow I kept noticing. I'd see a dark figure standing outside the window, staring in. Yet, whenever I turned to look directly, nothing was there. One day, my parents found the shoes they left outside the door had been moved, and worse, some had visible scratch marks on them. That seemed to push them over the edge. They quickly brought all the shoes inside and warned me not to leave the house no matter what happened, and went to their room to discuss something in hushed voices. By this point, I was pretty much certain that these events were connected to something supernatural. But no matter how much I pressed my mom, she refused to tell me anything, leaving me more curious about what kind of secret was so serious it had to be hidden with such effort. One day, some friends came over to visit since they'd heard I was grounded due to health reasons. While everyone joked around and tried to comfort me, I noticed a girl I barely knew, a friend of a friend. She didn't say a word, just kept staring at me with an intense, almost unsettling look. Eventually, when everyone was resting, she pulled me aside into my room. The moment the door closed, she asked, "Be honest, did you mess with something you shouldn't have?" Her question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "I can see it on you. Just tell me what happened," she insisted. "See what? What are you talking about?" She sighed. "Your whole face is dark, like bruised. You're practically out of your body already. Look, just tell me how you got into this mess." I didn't know how to respond. I wasn't even sure what had caused all of this myself. So I pressed her for details instead. Finally, she relented. "I can't go into specifics," she said hesitantly. "But let's just say something your family dealt with in the past is coming back to haunt you now." Her words shocked me. Could my family truly be hiding some dark secret? She seemed to sense my confusion and asked, "You never eat cherries, do you?" It was true. I never eat cherries. Even as a baby, I spit them out whenever my mom tried to feed them to me. But how could she know that? And what did it have to do with anything? Seeing my shock, she chuckled and gave my shoulder a light pat. "Don't overthink it. My mom's better at this stuff than I am. I'll ask her to help you." Later, I learned her name was Hui. She had only recently moved to the neighborhood, so we never interacted much before. But apparently, her family practiced some kind of spiritual work and were known for dealing with paranormal matters. No wonder she could sense something was wrong with me. By evening, everyone had left, with Hui being the last to go. Before she left, she lifted the jade pendant I'd been wearing around my neck, examined it for a moment, and sighed. "This isn't enough to protect you. Tonight, no matter who calls your name, don't respond. Got it?" "Who's going to call me?" "It doesn't matter who. Even if it's your parents, don't answer. Promise me." Her eyes were serious, her voice firm. After everything that had happened, I had no reason to doubt her. Nervously, I nodded and promised to do as she said. After the friends left, my parents came home and we spent the evening watching TV together. Several times, I wanted to ask Mom about what had happened in the past, but I just couldn't figure out how to bring it up. Eventually, it was time to go to bed. I went to brush my teeth, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw something lurking outside the bathroom window again. In that moment, I was fed up. I was really tired of this constant hiding and running around. I had to ask Mom and get to the bottom of this, then resolve it as soon as possible. So I quickly finished brushing my teeth and went straight to find Mom. She was in the bedroom, tidying up the bed. "Mom, why don't you let me go outside?" I asked. "You weren't even able to stand a few days ago. You need to rest before school starts," she replied casually. "I heard you and Dad are hiding something from me. Something about me." She paused but didn't look up. "What are you talking about? Who's been filling your head with nonsense?" Her movements were too deliberate, and I could tell she was avoiding the question. "A friend of mine had the ability to say things. She told me you've dealt with something serious before, but never told me about it." Mom froze. Slowly, she turned to glance at me before looking away again. "Mom, just tell me. Whatever is it, we can deal with it together." She hesitated, torn between speaking and staying silent. Finally, she said, "What's past is past. You'll know when the time is right." Her vague answer frustrated me. Why was she still keeping secrets? Ever since I received that anonymous text message, I have felt like I was being smothered by the countless mysteries. I had no one to confide in. My best friend didn't believe in the supernatural, and my mother refused to share the truth. In that moment, I finally snapped. I've seen the cat from 2035 multiple times outside the window. Mom visibly stiffened. I seized the opportunity to tell her everything I had experienced, the tests, the shadowy figure, the restless pets, Hui's cryptic warning, and even her mention of my aversion to cherries. "Mom, Hui told me to ignore anyone who calls my name tonight. Anyone. Even you or Dad." Mom's eyes filled with tears. She sat down, trembling, and finally spoke. "We moved here all this way just to keep you safe. We didn't want to scare you with the truth. We just wanted to solve this secretly before school started." She looked at me, her face pale. "You were never meant to leave." Her words were like a punch to the gut. What did that mean? I was never meant to leave? "When you were a baby, I was holding you in my arms one day when we ran into a fortune teller on the street. He looked at you and froze, then told me you were a heavenly child, has a 童子 fate. He said you weren't meant to stay in this world. You would be summoned back by the celestial realm before adulthood." At first, I thought he was a scammer, but over the years, 2 other fortune tellers said the same thing. Then one day, I encountered the 3rd fortune teller, and he asked, "Does your baby have 3 peach-shaped hair whorls on their head?" But how could anyone know that except me and the doctor? That's when I started to believe. I began searching for solutions, and somebody said there was only one way to save you: performing the burnt effigy ritual. The ritual would create a substitute soul to take your place in the heavens, letting you stay alive in this world. Mom paused, tears streaming down her face. "But just before we started the ritual, you suddenly developed a fever, over 40 degrees Celsius. You were convulsing, and nothing we did helped. A friend who was a medium told me it was the heavens calling you back. We had to perform the ritual immediately. We did, and the fever quickly disappeared as if it had never happened. I thought we were in the clear after that, but my friend warned me that even with the ritual, the celestial realm might eventually realize the substitution and come for you again. She said if we could keep you safe until you got married, you'd be free of this fate." Her explanation left me reeling. I had no memory of any of this. It sounded too fantastical to believe. "So what does it have to do with us moving to America?" I asked. "The medium suggested taking you out of Asia. Your fate is so unique that it makes you a perfect target for people practicing dark rituals. Moving overseas reduced the chances of encountering such people and was meant to keep you safe. But even here, it seems we couldn't escape." Mom's explanation ended there. She claimed not to know what connection the cat, the house, or the strange figures had to me, but she warned me to keep my distance from them. That night, The three of us stayed up talking until dawn. Mom was so shaken by Hui's warning that she insisted I not sleep alone. Whatever was coming, we faced it together. Finally, dawn broke. My parents, reassured by the sunlight, went back to sleep, leaving me alone to rest. Back in my room, I collapsed onto my bed. Gradually, my body felt heavy, my consciousness hazy. It wasn't long before I heard someone calling my name. The voice was unfamiliar, not even human. It carried a strange, otherworldly tone. Remembering Hui's warning, I didn't respond. The voice persisted, calling my name repeatedly, sometimes inventing excuses to lure me into answering. I resisted each time. Gradually, my body grew heavier, sinking into the mattress as if I were turning into a shapeless blob. As the sun rose, the voice grew impatient, spewing insults in an attempt to provoke me. But I held firm, ignoring it completely. Eventually, I must have dozed off because the next thing I remember was the doorbell jolting me awake. Didn't sleep well, huh? Look at those dark circles under your eyes, she teased. I wasn't in the mood for jokes. You were right. Someone or something was calling me. How did you even know? She just smiled knowingly and ignored my question. Instead, she pulled something out of her small backpack and handed it to me, telling me to place it under my pillow. My mom's out of town for a couple of days, so you'll have to manage on your own until she gets back, she explained. I examined the object, a small triangular package wrapped in red cloth. It felt like it contained sharp, needle-like items. Hui didn't offer further explanation, but I trusted her good intentions and accepted it. That night, I went to bed early, placing the package beneath my pillow as instructed. Once again, I heard the voice, but this time it sounded weak, almost pleading. Still, I ignored it. Then came another dream. The sky was overcast, and I found myself standing across from the 2035. But in this dream, the house was in ruins. Its walls were painted black, the angel statues by the roadside shattered just like in real life. The door creaked open, and the old woman beckoned me inside. For the first time, I saw her face clearly. It wasn't kind or grandmotherly. It was cruel and menacing. I wanted to run, but my body refused to move. Impatient, she gestured again, and my legs began moving toward the door against my will. Once inside, the door slammed shut behind me. The house was pitch dark except for a dim yellow light. Most of the walls had been torn down, leaving a vast open space. The old woman told me to sit on the nearby sofa while she prepared tea. I sat uneasily, wondering if this was still a dream or if I had crossed into some other realm. As I looked down, I noticed a pair of pale, childlike feet not far from me. Then they scurried away before I could react. At this point, the old woman returned with a sinister smile. She handed me a cup filled with a thick, dark liquid and insisted I drink it. Of course, I refused, standing to leave, but the front door had vanished. The old woman forced the liquid into my mouth. I swallowed a gulp and choked violently. Then, suddenly, she laughed loudly and shoved me out through the now visible door. I was back on the empty, eerily silent street. Slowly, I walked home, unsettled. But when I entered my room, I saw myself lying on the bed. Impossible. Yet it confirmed one thing. I was dreaming. Desperate to wake up, I focused all my energy on snapping out of it, but nothing worked. I looked at me lying on the bed, pacing back and forth, panic rising. After a long time, exhaustion set in, and I felt a sudden force push me back into my body. Then I fell into unconsciousness. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on the floor of a small wooden room. It was empty except for a corner altar adorned with candles, their soft light soothing my nerves. Just when I was observing, a middle-aged woman entered, carrying a basin of water. Her kind smile and gentle demeanor were a stark contrast to the nightmare I had just endured. She knelt beside me and wiped my face with a damp cloth. "I'm Hui's mother," she said warmly. "She must have mentioned me. Part of your soul was taken by that old woman. I'm here to call it back. You'll need to stay focused, close your eyes, and listen carefully. When you hear your name, respond with, 'It's me.'" I nodded weakly. Soon, the room seemed to come alive with movement. It was as if countless people were passing through. their voices blending into a chaotic murmur. I strained to listen, waiting for someone to call my name. Time stretched endlessly until finally I heard it. Summoning all my strength, I shouted, "It's me!" Then a loud gong reverberated in my ears. I woke up back in my bedroom. Hui's mother had left, but she left behind a small packet of grey powder. She instructed me to mix it with water and drink it, assuring me that everything would be fine. The soul summoning ritual had ended, and so had my bizarre ordeal, at least for now. As expected, my life returned to normal after that. I no longer dreamed of that door, and my energy was back to how it was before. Later, Mom asked Hui's mother about the secrets hidden in the house, but she kept avoiding the topic, saying that some heavenly things cannot be revealed. It was only after much persistence that she finally shared part of the truth. It may sound fantastical. If you don't believe it, just take it as a story. The family indeed moved into the area after 2002. As for why they chose that place, Hui's mother wouldn't say. However, one thing is clear. The old woman moved in to practice a dark ritual. The goal was to absorb the energy and souls of others to ascend herself to immortality. Emily wasn't the old woman's daughter. She was just a victim because her soul met specific criteria. The two kids were also chosen for the same reason. It's highly likely that all three were secretly killed by the old woman long ago. Do you remember I mentioned the two angel statues in front of the villa? Hui's mother guessed that the statues contained the ashes of the two kids. As for Emily's body, it was probably buried beneath the center of the hall. That spot would form a magical array, helping the old woman absorb the souls of all three. However, the two children were too young, and their energy quickly depleted. That's why, one day, they suddenly shattered on their own. Their souls were gone. At that point, the old woman urgently needed new souls, and I showed up just in time. Because my family had performed a ritual to burn a spiritual substitute for me, my soul had already returned to heaven to report. In other words, the soul currently residing in the living world was considered unregistered. If someone took my soul, they wouldn't face divine punishment. That is why my mom's friend had previously suggested we moved abroad. As for why it happened to be the same time and place that the old woman and I moved in, who knows? It might have been a coincidence, a fate, or perhaps she had already calculated everything. Once she deemed the timing right, she began luring me toward the house in various ways, appearing in my dreams, sending anonymous messages, and even using that cat to follow me. Then, while I was asleep, she used some method to pull my soul out of my body, guiding it to her house and forcing me to drink that tea in order to extract part of my soul. Thankfully, Hui's mom used the same method to bring my soul back, and that's the entire story. This story leaves a shocking impression on me. I know some mediums in China practice dark arts to harm others through certain rituals, but going to such great lengths to achieve immortality, that is honestly the first time I've ever heard of it. I always believed that things like this were purely myths from fictional concepts in online fantasy novels. But after hearing this story, I can't help but feel like a friend in the comments once said, I'm starting to question the very reality of this world. Next, let me explain the concept of heavenly child, which is also called 童子妃 in Chinese. 童子 means child or virgin. They are essentially workers for deities. Sometimes, like us, these little souls make mistakes and are punished by being reincarnated into the human world to atone for their sins. These people are said to have a 童子 fate. So even the gods think life on earth is tough, huh? Those with a 童子 fate are believed to be unable to live past 18 years old. Before then, they die due to various accidents, which essentially means their souls are summoned back. However, since they are also beloved children in their families, people have come up with a ritual to send a substitute. A paper effigy is crafted bearing the child's name, birth date, and time of birth. Then the effigy is burned as a substitute, pretending sending the little soul to return to heaven while keeps the kid in the human world. Children have a 童子 fate often have noticeable traits. They experience a difficult childhood, frequently face health issues, and often suffer from incurable conditions. They also tend to be introverted and struggle with social interactions, making relationships and marriage challenging. However, such children are often exceptionally good-looking and possess remarkable talent in areas like art, literature, or mysticism. After all, they're essentially former divine employees. Alright, that wraps up this story. I know it sounds very absurd, so feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Of course, don't forget to like and follow me. In the next video, we'll dive into the first part of Hong Kong's top 10 infamous cases. See you next Saturday night.